think the national conference of any big political party is not particularly thrilling in terms of democracy. Everyone thinks that national conference is where great speeches are made and delegates change their views because of these wonderful speeches, but it's never to do with that. It is to do with the right and the left negotiating agreements behind the stage, so to speak. It's a very democratic process, but it's not a very seen process. What you see in there, in the actual hall, is a whole lot of set speeches. You see the ministers making a set speech, then you see the leader of some union making a set speech, and no debate breaks out at all. It's just boring as batshit. The really interesting stuff is happening out the back, where people's arms are being, ripped up behind their back, and it's much more interesting. The meeting I've just been in was, there were two of us who were deputised by the left to go and negotiate with the ministers' officers in the foreign policy area. So we have Faulkner, Smith and Bob McMullen, and they're all pretty good ministers to deal with, but there are going to be differences. I mean, we're in the left and, they're the government, and we're going to be putting up motions that they're going to disagree with. The whole point about negotiating is the left has so much more power actually at conference, because the right doesn't want you to put up anything. They want a really, really boring button-down conference. So you have the power to make trouble, and that's an enormous power. And if you say to them, as I said a couple of times just then when we had a meeting, oh, look, I think we might take that to the floor, they get very anxious and they go away and come back with a slightly better wording. I think the areas where we won't be able to find common ground is probably Afghanistan, where the left position is much more in favour of getting out. Probably Palestine and Israel. There'll be there's an issue to do with wording, and there'll be a bit of a fight over Western Sahara if they don't let us put in our motion about a free and fair referendum. But I think I'll win that one in the end. I think people want to see that sort of serious discussion and serious voting taking place. I don't think a division in a party in that way can be seen as a bad thing. But it's how policy's made. I mean, people are kidding themselves if they think that policy comes from the minds of the brightest and best in, no other sort of context. Policy is made by a series of processes, yeah. And often it's quite good policy in the end. And often it's terrible policy. But, that's